This verse will give you clarity right now. Your life didn't fall apart. Nothing dramatic happened. From the outside, everything still looks fine. You're functioning, responding, showing up, doing what needs to be done. But inside, something feels off. It's not loud. It's not obvious. It's just this quiet, constant sense that you don't really know what you're doing anymore. You wake up and your mind is already full. Thoughts about decisions you need to make. Questions you don't have answers to. A subtle pressure telling you that you should have figured things out by now. And the more you try to think your way through it, the more tangled everything becomes. It's exhausting, not because you're doing too much, but because you're carrying too much inside your head. You replay conversations. You imagine scenarios. You try to predict outcomes. You weigh every possible choice. And still, clarity doesn't come. Instead, there's this growing fear in the background. What if I choose wrong? What if I'm missing something important? So you keep thinking. You keep searching. You keep trying to force an answer out of your own understanding. But what if that's the very reason you feel stuck? What if clarity was never meant to come from overthinking, but from something deeper, something quieter, something you haven't been paying attention to? There is a moment, often unnoticed, when the soul begins to get tired of noise. Not just external noise, but internal noise. And in that moment, even if you don't know how to say it, something inside you starts longing for direction that doesn't come from your own mind. Not more information, not more analysis. Something that brings peace first, and then direction. Because real clarity doesn't begin when everything makes sense. It begins when something inside you finally becomes still. And there is a verse, simple, powerful, and often overlooked, that has the ability to cut through all this confusion and speak directly into the place where you feel lost right now. Not with complexity, not with pressure, but with a kind of truth that settles the heart before it answers the mind. You don't just feel confused. You feel the weight of having to decide while being unsure. It's one thing to not know what's next. It's another thing entirely to feel like you must choose anyway. That pressure builds quietly. No one sees it, but it's there every time you think about your future, your relationships, your direction. Every option feels loaded. Every decision feels final. And deep inside, there's a fear you don't always admit out loud. What if I make the wrong move and everything gets worse? So you hesitate. You go back and forth. One day something feels right. The next day it doesn't. What once gave you confidence now feels uncertain. And the more you analyze, the more unstable your own thoughts begin to feel. This is where many people get stuck. Not because they lack options, but because they've lost clarity about themselves. When your inner world is unsettled, even the right path can feel wrong. And then comes the mental exhaustion. You start questioning things that once felt simple. You doubt your own judgment. You look for signs everywhere, trying to grab onto anything that can give you certainty. But instead of peace, you find more tension, more urgency, more pressure, because you've been taught in subtle ways that clarity means having everything figured out before you move. But that's not how God leads. The weight you feel right now isn't just about the decision in front of you. It's coming from the belief that you are responsible for controlling the outcome of your life. And that belief will drain you, because you were never created to carry that kind of responsibility alone. There's a reason why even your best thinking hasn't brought you peace yet. It's not because you're incapable. It's because clarity was never designed to come from pressure. It comes from alignment. And until something inside you shifts, every decision will continue to feel heavier than it actually is. There is a silent habit that feels productive, but slowly drains your clarity. Trying to figure everything out on your own. No one taught you to do this directly. It just became natural. When something feels uncertain, you go inward. You analyze, calculate, compare, imagine outcomes. You try to be responsible, wise, careful. On the surface, it looks like maturity, but underneath, it creates a hidden pressure. Because when you place yourself as the one who needs to understand everything before moving, you also become the one responsible for getting everything right. And that weight is too much for any human heart to carry. So your mind keeps working. You revisit the same thoughts in different angles, hoping that this time something will click. You tell yourself that if you just think a little more, research a little more, wait a little more, clarity will finally come. But instead, something else happens. Your thoughts begin to loop. What once felt like careful thinking slowly turns into overthinking. And overthinking doesn't produce clarity. It produces noise. It creates imaginary scenarios, amplifies fears, and makes simple decisions feel complex. You start doubting things that were once clear. You question your intuition. You lose confidence in your own perception. And the hardest part is this: the more you try to solve it alone, the more distant clarity feels. Because clarity is not the result of mental effort alone. It is the result of inner alignment. There is a difference between thinking and being guided. Thinking relies on your limited perspective. It tries to predict, control, and secure outcomes. But guidance comes from a place beyond your current understanding. It doesn't always explain everything, but it leads with peace. And this is where something important needs to be understood. The problem is not that you're thinking. The problem is that you've made your own understanding the highest authority in your life. And when that happens, even God's direction becomes hard to perceive. Because His voice is not found in mental chaos. It is recognized in stillness. What you've been calling lack of clarity might not be a lack of answers. It might be an excess of self-reliance. And until that shifts, your mind will continue to work hard, without bringing you the peace you're looking for. There is a kind of noise that doesn't come from the outside. It comes from within. And the more you live in it, the harder it becomes to recognize what is true. It's not just thoughts. It's tension. It's urgency. It's that constant inner pressure telling you that you need to solve everything now, understand everything now, decide everything now. And when that pressure takes over, something subtle happens. You stop listening. Not because you don't want direction, but because your inner world is too crowded to perceive it. Even when something is right in front of you, it doesn't feel clear. Even when God is speaking, it doesn't feel accessible. Because clarity is not only about what is being said, it's about the condition of the heart that is receiving it. An anxious heart will turn guidance into doubt. A fearful mind will distort even the simplest direction. What is light begins to feel heavy. What is simple begins to feel complicated. That's why you can read something true and still feel confused. It's not that the truth is unclear. It's that the noise inside you is louder than the truth you're trying to hear. And this noise doesn't just block clarity, it reshapes your perception. You start interpreting everything through fear. Every option feels risky. Every path feels uncertain. Even silence feels like something is wrong. So you try to escape that discomfort by thinking more, searching more, asking more. But the noise doesn't go away, because it's not being fed by lack of answers. It's being sustained by lack of stillness. There is a difference between seeking clarity and chasing control. One brings peace. The other increases anxiety. And many times, without realizing it, you shift from seeking to chasing. You don't just want direction. You want certainty. You want guarantees. You want to eliminate the possibility of pain, mistakes, or disappointment. But clarity doesn't come through control. It comes through surrender. And surrender is difficult when your mind is loud, because stillness feels unfamiliar. Slowing down feels risky. Letting go of control feels like losing something important. But in reality, it's the opposite. What feels like losing control is actually the beginning of seeing clearly. Because when the noise begins to settle, something else starts to rise. Not confusion, not pressure, but a quiet, steady sense of direction that doesn't need to shout to be real. There comes a moment when you stop trying to be strong. Not because you gave up, but because something inside you got tired of pretending you still have control. The thoughts slow down, not because everything is resolved, but because you no longer have the energy to keep forcing answers. And in that quiet exhaustion, something real begins to surface. It's not a perfect prayer. It's not a well-structured sentence. It's more like a whisper from deep inside. I don't know what to do anymore. That moment is more powerful than it seems, because for the first time, you're not trying to impress God with your understanding. You're not trying to present solutions. You're simply being honest. And honesty is where real connection begins. Many people think they need to come to God with clarity, with strength, with faith already figured out. But what God responds to is something much deeper than that. He responds to a heart that stops pretending, a heart that admits confusion, a heart that acknowledges limits, a heart that is willing to be guided instead of trying to lead everything alone. This is the turning point most people overlook. They think the breakthrough comes when they find the right answer, but often it begins when they release the need to have one. Because as long as you're holding tightly to your own understanding, there is no space to receive a different kind of direction. But when you open your hands, even in uncertainty, something shifts. You become receptive. And in that posture, clarity doesn't arrive as pressure. It comes as presence. You may still not know everything. The situation around you may not change immediately. But something inside begins to realign. There is less resistance, less tension, less urgency. And in that softened space, you become able to recognize what was always there, but previously hidden by noise. This is where many people experience something unexpected. Not a sudden solution, but a sense that they are no longer alone in the process. And that changes everything. Because when you stop trying to carry everything by yourself, guidance no longer feels distant. It becomes personal. It becomes present. It becomes something you can actually receive. It's in that quiet openness that the verse finally lands differently. Not as something you've heard before, not as a familiar line you already know, but as a living word that seems to meet you exactly where you are. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. Proverbios, capítulo 3, versículos 5-6. At first it sounds simple, almost too simple for the complexity of what you're facing. But when you stop and really listen, something deeper begins to unfold. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Not part of your heart. Not the parts that feel safe. All of it. Even the confused parts. Even the parts that are afraid of what comes next. This is not just about belief. It's about where you place your weight. Right now, your weight has been on your own ability to understand, predict, and control. And that's why everything feels heavy. Because you're leaning on something that was never meant to support you fully. Then comes the part that challenges everything you've been doing. Lean not on your own understanding. This is not saying your understanding is useless. It's saying it's limited. It means there are things you cannot see yet. There are connections you cannot make on your own. There are outcomes that go beyond your current perspective, and trying to force clarity from a limited view will always lead to frustration. But then the verse shifts from what to release to what to do. In all your ways, acknowledge him. Not just in spiritual moments, not just when things are calm. In all your ways, in your decisions, in your doubts, in your daily thoughts. This is an invitation to bring God into the middle of your process, not just the result. And then comes the promise. And he will make your paths straight. Not you, he. This is where clarity truly begins to change shape. It's no longer something you have to construct. It's something that is formed as you walk in relationship, not control. The path doesn't become straight because you figured everything out. It becomes straight because you stop trying to walk it alone. And suddenly the verse is no longer distant. It's personal. It speaks directly into your confusion and offers something your mind hasn't been able to produce. Not more information. Direction. At first glance, the verse feels comforting. It sounds like something you can hold on to, something stable in the middle of everything that feels uncertain. And that initial sense of relief matters, because it shows you that clarity doesn't always arrive with complexity. Sometimes it begins with something simple enough for your heart to receive. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Even without going deep, this already speaks to a place inside you that's been carrying too much. It gently redirects your focus away from your own effort and towards something greater than you. You begin to realize that maybe the problem isn't that you don't have answers. Maybe it's that you've been trying to be your own answer, and that realization softens something inside. Then the next part settles in. Lean not on your own understanding. On the surface, it sounds like advice, but when you look at your current situation, it starts to feel like a diagnosis. Because if you're honest, most of your stress has been coming from trying to understand everything before moving. You've been waiting for a level of certainty that your own mind cannot produce. And this line gently removes that burden. It gives you permission to stop forcing clarity out of your own thoughts. Not because thinking is wrong, but because it's not enough on its own. And then something begins to shift. You stop expecting your mind to solve what your spirit needs to receive. That alone brings a different kind of relief. Not because everything is clear yet, but because you're no longer trying to extract clarity from the wrong source. And when you read the final part again, He will make your path straight. It starts to feel less like a distant promise and more like a quiet assurance. You may not see the path fully. You may not know every step ahead, but there is a sense that something is being aligned beyond what you can currently perceive. And that changes how you stand in the middle of uncertainty. You're no longer desperate for answers, you're open to direction. And that is the first layer of clarity. Not knowing everything, but knowing where to place your trust. When you stay with the verse a little longer, you begin to notice that it's not just giving comfort, it's reshaping the way you relate to your life. Because beneath the surface, this is not only about trusting God, it's about releasing a way of living that has quietly been exhausting you. Lean not on your own understanding. This is deeper than it sounds. It's not only about the way you think, it's about the way you've been positioning yourself in your own story. You've been acting as the one who needs to foresee, manage, and secure every outcome. Even when you pray, a part of you still tries to stay in control. And that inner tension creates distance, not because God is far, but because control leaves no space for dependence. The verse is not asking you to stop thinking. It's inviting you to stop depending on your thoughts as your foundation. There is a difference. You can think, reflect, and consider, but still not lean on that as your final source of direction, because your understanding is shaped by what you've lived, what you've seen, what you fear, and what you expect. And all of that is limited. God sees what you cannot. He sees timing you don't understand. He sees doors that are not yet visible. He sees consequences and protections that your current perspective cannot reach. And this is where trust becomes real. Not when everything makes sense, but when you accept that it doesn't need to. Then comes another layer. In all your ways, acknowledge Him. This is not about occasional connection. It's about integration. It means bringing God into the small, ordinary daily movements of your life. The decisions that seem simple, the thoughts that feel repetitive, the emotions you don't fully understand. It's choosing to pause and recognize His presence in the middle of it all, not as a ritual, but as a relationship. And when that happens, something subtle begins to change. You become more aware, not in a tense way, but in a grounded way. You start to notice what brings peace and what brings agitation. You begin to discern what aligns and what doesn't. And this awareness is not coming from overthinking. It's coming from connection. That's why the verse doesn't say you will make your own path clear. It says, He will make your paths straight. Because clarity is not something you produce. It is something that is revealed as you walk in alignment. And that means the process matters. Not just the destination, not just the answer, but the way your heart is being shaped while you move. What once felt like delay starts to feel like preparation. What once felt like confusion starts to feel like a space where something deeper is being formed. And without realizing it, you begin to trust not only the outcome, but the one who is guiding every step toward it. You've been taught to believe that clarity means seeing everything before you begin. A full picture, a guaranteed outcome, a sense of certainty that removes all risk. And until you feel that, you hesitate. You wait. You hold back, thinking that moving without full clarity is dangerous. But that expectation is exactly what keeps you stuck. Because God does not lead by showing you the entire path at once. He leads by giving you enough light for the step you're in. And that changes everything. Clarity in the way God gives it is not about knowing where everything will end. It's about knowing what is right now. It's about recognizing the next step with enough peace to take it, even if the rest is still hidden. This is difficult for the mind to accept, because your mind wants security. It wants to eliminate uncertainty. It wants to avoid mistakes. So it keeps asking for more information, more confirmation, more guarantees. But God is not trying to satisfy your need for control. He's forming your ability to trust. And trust grows in movement, not in complete visibility. Think about it. If you could see everything ahead, you wouldn't need faith. You wouldn't need to depend. You would rely on your own understanding again. But when you only have enough light for one step, something inside you has to shift. You begin to move differently. You begin to pay attention differently. You begin to lean in not on your own thoughts, but on His presence. And that's where clarity becomes alive. Not as a fixed answer, but as a living guidance. You stop asking, how will everything work out? And you begin to ask, what is mine to do right now? That question is lighter. It's clearer. It's more grounded, because it brings you back to the present, where God is already working. Many times, the confusion you feel is not because God is silent. It's because you're trying to see too far ahead. And when you do that, you step out of the place where clarity is actually given. God doesn't overwhelm you with the future. He anchors you in the present. And in that place, clarity becomes simple again. Not easy, but simple. One step, one direction, one act of trust at a time. And as you take that step, something remarkable happens. The path begins to align under your feet. Not because you figured it out, but because you chose to walk without needing to see it all. There is a quiet invitation inside this verse that most people overlook. It doesn't demand that you understand everything. It doesn't pressure you to have certainty. It simply calls you to trust, even when part of you still feels unsure. And that is where the real tension begins, because trusting without understanding feels uncomfortable. It feels risky. It feels like stepping into something without guarantees. Your mind resists it. Your instincts try to pull you back into what feels familiar, analyzing, controlling, delaying. But this invitation is different. It's not asking you to ignore reality. It's asking you to relate to it differently. When the verse says to trust with all your heart, it's not describing a feeling that appears out of nowhere. It's describing a decision, a posture, a choice to place your confidence in God's direction, even when your emotions haven't fully caught up yet. And this is where many people get stuck. They wait to feel ready before they trust. They wait for peace before they move. They wait for clarity before they surrender. But trust doesn't grow after certainty. It grows in the middle of uncertainty. It's built in those moments where you choose to release control, even if your thoughts are still questioning. It's strengthened when you move forward, even if you don't feel completely secure. And something important begins to happen when you do that. You stop depending on explanations. You start recognizing direction, not always as a loud voice, not always as a dramatic sign, but as a quiet alignment inside, a subtle sense that this is right even if you can't fully explain why. That's how God often leads. Not by removing all doubt, but by giving you enough peace to continue. And that peace doesn't come from knowing everything. It comes from knowing Him, from trusting His character, His timing, His ability to guide you better than you can guide yourself. This is why the verse doesn't say, understand first, then trust. It says, trust, and then your path will be made straight, because trust is what unlocks the process. Not perfection, not certainty, trust. And when you begin to live that way, something inside you becomes steadier. You're no longer waiting for everything to feel safe. You're learning to walk even when it doesn't. And in that movement, clarity becomes something you experience, not something you demand. This is where everything becomes real. Because it's one thing to understand a verse. It's another thing to live it when your situation hasn't changed yet. The questions are still there. The uncertainty hasn't disappeared. The decisions are still waiting to be made. And in the middle of that, This truth needs to move from your mind into your daily life. In all your ways, acknowledge Him. This is not a distant idea. It's something you can practice right now, in the middle of your reality. It begins with something simple, but powerful. You pause. Not because everything is resolved, but because you refuse to keep moving from a place of pressure. You take a moment to step out of the mental noise and become aware again. Aware of His presence. Aware that you're not alone in what you're facing. Aware that you don't have to force clarity before taking a step. And then, instead of asking 100 questions, you begin with one honest movement of the heart. God, I bring this to you. Not with perfect words, not with full understanding, just with sincerity. You bring your decision. You bring your confusion. You bring your fear of making the wrong choice. And something begins to shift when you do that consistently. You stop reacting. You start responding. Instead of rushing into decisions driven by anxiety, you begin to notice what carries peace and what carries pressure. You become more sensitive to the difference between urgency and direction. Because not everything that feels urgent is from God, and not everything that feels slow is wrong. When you acknowledge Him in your ways, you are inviting Him into your process. And that changes how you move. You become more grounded. You don't need to solve everything in one moment. You don't need to rush to prove that you know what you're doing. You begin to take steps with awareness. Small decisions become lighter. Not because they're insignificant, but because you're no longer carrying them alone. And over time, something becomes clear. Clarity is not a single moment where everything makes sense. It's a series of aligned steps, taken in relationship. You look back and realize that what once felt confusing is now behind you. Not because you had all the answers at the beginning, but because you kept walking with God in the middle of it. And that is how the path becomes straight. Not instantly, but faithfully, step by step. As you choose, again and again, to bring Him into every part of your life, something begins to change inside you before anything changes around you. The same situation may still be there, the same questions may still exist, but the way you carry them is no longer the same. The pressure starts to loosen. That constant urgency to figure everything out begins to fade. Not because you suddenly have all the answers, but because you're no longer depending on them to feel at peace. This is where a different kind of clarity is born. Not the clarity that explains everything, but the clarity that steadies you. You notice it in small ways. Your thoughts are no longer racing the same way. The scenarios that once consumed you don't have the same power. You still think, you still consider, but there is space now. Space between the thought and your reaction. And in that space, peace starts to grow. Not a dramatic peace, not something overwhelming. A quiet, consistent peace. The kind that doesn't need noise to prove it's real. And this peace does something powerful. It changes how you see. What once felt confusing starts to feel simpler. Not because the situation became easy, but because your inner world is no longer distorting everything. You begin to recognize what aligns and what doesn't. Some options lose their weight. Some paths no longer pull you the same way. Things that once felt urgent now feel unnecessary. And without forcing anything, direction begins to form. You don't have to chase it. You begin to notice it. This is what happens when peace replaces pressure, because pressure clouds your vision, but peace clarifies it. And this peace is not something you created. It's something that came from trusting, from releasing, from acknowledging God in the middle of your process. That's why it feels different. It doesn't depend on circumstances. It doesn't disappear when things are uncertain. It remains. And as it remains, it continues to guide you. Not with noise, not with confusion, but with a steady sense that you are moving in the right direction, even if you can't explain every detail yet. This is where many people realize something important. They were not lacking clarity, they were lacking peace. And once peace is present, clarity naturally follows. Not all at once, but enough for you to keep walking. And that is all you need. You thought your problem was not knowing what to do. But what if the real struggle was believing you were alone in figuring it out? For so long you've been carrying this invisible pressure, trying to see everything, understand everything, control everything. And every time clarity didn't come, it felt like something was wrong with you. But nothing is wrong with you. You were just trying to lead a life that was never meant to be led alone. That's why everything felt heavy. That's why your thoughts felt overwhelming. That's why even simple decisions became complicated. Because you were placing on yourself a responsibility that belongs to God. And now, something has shifted. Not because you suddenly have all the answers, but because you no longer need them in the same way. You see it differently now. Clarity is not about having the full picture. It's about knowing you are being guided, even when the picture is incomplete. You are not standing in the dark, trying to find your way by yourself. You are walking with someone who already sees the entire path. And that changes how you move. You don't need to rush anymore. You don't need to force understanding. You don't need to carry the weight of getting everything right. Because the direction of your life is not sustained by your ability to figure it out. It is sustained by your willingness to trust. And maybe right now, nothing around you has changed, but something inside you has become steady. The confusion is not the same. The pressure is not the same. The fear is not leading you the same way. Because now you know something deeper than answers. You know that you are being guided. And when you truly understand that, even if the road ahead is not fully clear, you no longer feel lost. You feel held. You feel led. You feel at peace.